What is up, enthusiasts? It is Cedar Flags here, and welcome back to another one of my videos. So, we all have our favorite roller coasters, and we all have a set of roller coasters that make up our top 5, top 10, etc. And some of you out there might think that some roller coasters are completely perfect, but I'm here to tell you right now, in my personal opinion, no coaster is perfect. And there will always be cons to every roller coaster that comes out, even the most world-class of them all. And today, I wanted to point out the biggest con or cons of the world's best roller coasters. I only have 6 roller coasters that I'm going to mention in this video, but if you want a part 2 with a coaster that you haven't heard yet, well, let me know down in the comments below. So without further ado, this is Cedar Flags, and today, I'm going to talk about the worst part about your favorite coaster. So in this video, I want to mention the worst part about the world's best roller coasters, and I'm going to start off with my personal number 1, Steel Vengeance at Cedar Point. How could I possibly hate on Steel Vengeance? I don't think there's been a time where I have hated on this ride. Every time I talk about it, it's praise. In fact, since this is my number 1, I wanted to do a little bit of a twofer on this one. That is right, I'm not going to mention just one con, but 2. And the first con I want to talk about might not be as obvious, but as someone who's ridden this ride a lot, on different days in different climates, the consistency of this ride is a huge issue. And what do I mean by that? Well, I necessarily don't mean consistency, I mean the lack thereof. Consistency means, well, to stay elite throughout the whole time, throughout the whole day, throughout the whole season. No matter when you ride it, it's going to be an elite ride. And Steel Vengeance is not one of those coasters, at least for me. Yes, most rides warm up during the day, and it might be slightly faster later in the day and at night than it is in the morning, but the change on Steve's pacing from the morning to night is absolutely ludicrous. I've gotten so many rides in the morning, then I've come back later in the night, and there is such an extreme difference. When you ride this ride at 11 AM, it's a very strong floater and very mild ejector at the very most. But when you come back to this ride during the evening, it is extremely strong world-class ejector airtime. It's very confusing for me, and, well, like I said, these do happen on other rides, nowhere near as much as this. In fact, this ride in the morning doesn't even crack my top 5. Alrighty, for the bonus round, and the second major complaint I have about this ride is the locker system. Now, I know this is a common complaint, but I feel like no one really complains about this as much as it should because it is a major bottleneck and makes the line unnecessarily long. Pre-2021, there were 2 separate lines, Fast Lane and Standby. This is normal procedure at Cedar Point, and with metal detector systems and paid lockers, yeah, it was a pain, but it was nowhere near as bad as the mess that they have today. Maybe some of you might prefer the free lockers to the paid lockers and simpler queue, but I would much rather pay a few bucks for a locker than have to wait an extra 30 minutes to an hour. Yeah, with Fastlane, you're going to be waiting at least 30 to 45 minutes for one ride, as opposed to the marathons you used to get. Basically, midway through the line, the standby queue and fastlane queues intermerge, so you gotta be waiting with everyone, and you gotta go through this free locker system, and then go on the ride in, once again, a singular queue. I've always found it very confusing as the fastlane queue is still very visible and empty, but oh well, Cedar Point is doing what they do, even though it's a major complaint for me. I hope they could change this in the future, especially when COVID wears out. Up next, we have another ride that's heavily praised, or at least it used to be heavily praised. That is right, we are talking about Lightning Rod at Dollywood. And my main issue for this, it cannot operate as designed for many reasons. Yeah, there are a lot of unreliable rides out there like Steel Curtain at Kennywood and Cedar Point's Top Thrill Dragster. But those rides, well, not really Top Thrill Dragster anymore, but oh well, can operate the same way they did as they opened, just with some issues. Lightning Rod, on the other hand, has had major changes to its ride every few years, and is a former shell of what it used to be in its opening year. In 2016, it was the fastest wooden coaster in the world, had world-class pacing, and was all wood. But then in 2018, they slowed down the ride after mechanical issues and sensor issues, and then after roughness, they decided to convert half the track to all steel. So now it's a hybrid instead of just a woody. This ride changes every 2 or 3 years, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if by 2025 this ride had a lift hill or something. This ride changes so much, and I really hope that its years aren't limited, but I hope it could once return to the former glory that it used to have, because let's be honest, every time someone mentions this in a top 10 list, they always talk about how it was 10 times better when it first opened up. That's usually the butt of the whole conversation. Lightning Rod, just stop changing. We like the original you a lot better than we do now, even though this ride is still a world-class RMC. By far, the hardest coaster I could find a con with that was requested was Fury 325 at Carowinds. This ride is phenomenal and extremely well rounded. It has great airtime, good positives, phenomenal pacing, and what could possibly be the world's best operations. But I have a little bit of a nitpick with this ride. I got to grow up with Millennium Force at Cedar Point, and many people say this is an inferior ride, and even though I may disagree, Fury is still a phenomenal choice. But a big difference is the setting. While Millennium Force drops you beside a body of water, takes you through tunnels and rock formations, and even beside the queue, Fury is placed on an entirely flat sheet of grass. It is also snug up right next to the parking lot of Carowinds, and I like to nickname this ride the world's best parking lot coaster. Now, I know there wasn't really too much that they could do with this ride setting, but I just had to nitpick. I'm gonna be honest, I really don't like the setting of this ride. It's just weird. I feel like they could have put a lot more into the sheet of grass and put Fury in a more scenic area. Yes, I know, this is extreme nitpicking, but I had to do it for the video because I think it's a major con, but otherwise, it really isn't that bad. Take Fury's problem and multiply it by 10. That's what you get with my number 2 roller coaster of all time, Storm Chaser at Kentucky Kingdom. This RMC is crazy. From the barrel roll drop to the airtime moments to the final airtime sequence of back-to-back airtime moments, this ride truly is a world-class phenomenal RMC. And this RMC will make you want to get back on and on and on. But on the ride, I had one major complaint. It's in the middle of an industrial park. Yes, Kentucky Kingdom itself isn't really in the best place in Louisville, Kentucky, but Storm Chaser especially is in a pretty weird area. If you're looking at Storm Chaser, well, you can see this elite RMC covered in barbed wire fences and a lot of concrete. Yeah, this really does turn you off when it comes to setting, but you really have to ignore that when this ride is that good. If you want even more nails in the coffin, it's right next to a massive concrete slab that holds the old trains for the old Enterprise ride. This was for their top eliminator dragster, and it really just looks like an eyesore. So next time you ride this elite world-class RMC, make sure you look over to the left with the PepsiCo building and look at all the barbed wire fences as you enjoy this world-class RMC experience. Up next, we have the one, the only Voyage at Holiday World. A very popular roller coaster among enthusiasts, this is a pretty similar issue to Steel Vengeance, but with one main difference. Steel Vengeance is consistency throughout the day, and Voyage, well, it's consistency throughout the year. Different days, different times. What do I mean by this? Well, during some days, even if it's hot, it will not be running that fast, but other days, it will be running with world-class ejector airtime, especially at night during their Hollywood Nights event. This ride has definitely gotten some mixed opinions over the years. While some people may rank it in their top 10 or even as their number 1, others might think it might be a glorified beast, as in a bunch of straight track feeling airtime moments. Me personally, I am in the latter group right now. I was unfortunate to get a bad day on Voyage, which I'm assuming is a bad day because, man, this ride gets a lot more hype than the rides I got. But I'm not going to say that is the ride itself anymore because, I'm going to be honest, so many people have ridden it on better days. Now, Steel Vengeance warms up throughout the day, Voyage warms up on certain days, and I really don't know why. Its little coaster, Ravine Flyer 2, is ejector no matter when you ride it. It could be cold, it could be hot. Those airtime moments are going to give you some insane ejector, especially the ones over the bridge. Well, Voyage? Well, this ride could be very mixed. When I rode it, I only got 2 moments of flowjector airtime, and that was it. Nothing else, no insane ejector, just a mediocre wooden coaster. I don't know if there's really a way to fix this, and I really cannot explain the reason of this. Let me know down in the comments below if you have an explanation, but for conclusions, it seems like this ride runs better on certain days, and runs pretty bad on other days, and the difference might be even bigger than Steel Vengeance's. Finally, we have what many people consider the other world's best wooden coaster. We have El Toro at Six Flags Great Adventure. Besides the obvious derailment problems, this ride definitely is a phenomenal coaster, but there has always been a little bit of a nitpick I've had with it despite never riding it, and that is the final part of the ride. Finales on roller coasters should be grand. They should be the final thing that people remember on a ride and what they base their initial opinions off of. When you go on Steel Vengeance, you're going to remember that finale first and then recap the rest of the ride. Same thing with rides like Maverick, Lightning Rod, and etc. But on El Toro, after that rolling thunder hill midway through the ride, it's a bunch of S-bends and forceless airtime moments. At least that's what I've heard from fellow enthusiasts. And really, this is kind of disappointing. With a ride this world class, you would expect a second half way better, but it seems like this ride really doesn't end off with a bang, but more with a whimper. This might be a little more of a minor complaint because the first half, well, is one of the best coasters on the planet. Heck, if the ride ended after that rolling thunder hill, I think this ride could be even better than it is now. Because even though that duration is a major factor, that finale really doesn't look that good whatsoever. Looking at a ride like Steel Vengeance, yes, I did complain about this, but the finale is phenomenal. Some people may not like the aggressive airtime moments, but it makes way for its pacing, while El Toro seems to slow down immensely. This might just be because of the ride's design and less of a focus for airtime back then, but nowadays it seems a little bit of a weird placement. Anyways, what did you think about this video? Let me know down in the comments below, and make sure to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed, and let me know what you would want to see in a part 2. Take this video with a grain of salt because I really do not hate any of these rides. All of these rides are phenomenal in their own merit, and I can definitely see how all of these rides are most people's number ones. Anyways, this is Cedar Flags, and I'll see you all later.